Start in mountain pose at the top of your mat. So feet are hip-width distance apart. Toes and heels are the same distance apart, so your feet are parallel. You're twisting your tailbone back and down, and you're activating the tops of the knees, the quadricep muscles. So twisting your tailbone back and down towards your heels activates your glutes and your core. Your shoulders can shrug up towards your ears and then back and down behind you, away from the ears. Spine nice and tall, neck is flat, palms facing forward. Activating Ujjayi breath. So slightly constrict the back of the throat. And as you breathe in and out through your nose, try to sound like Darth Vader. Today's class is about the lower back. So there are moves to strengthen and stretch that lower back. If you have lower back pain, this is a great class. I can't guarantee you won't have pain after the class because there are some strength moves, but I can guarantee that with proper supervision, if you take care of your lower back, it'll take care of you. Go ahead and set an intention for today's class. On an inhale, raise your arms above your head. Gaze is up your fingertips past the sky. And then exhale with a flat back down into a forward fold. Palms flat on the mat. If you need to bend your knees, that's fine. If you're very long-limbed, you can take your arms behind your calves. If your knees are bent, you're pushing your hips up behind you to stretch your hamstrings. And your neck is loose here, so you can move it in every direction. Grab opposite elbows or opposite bicep, coming into a more ragdoll position here. You can lean on one foot and then towards the other foot, shifting your weight, seeing what that does to the hamstrings, the back of the leg, the lower back. Slowly start to ragdoll up, so stacking vertebrae on top of vertebrae. Slowly making your way forward. You can let go of your elbows or your biceps if you haven't already. Shoulders and head come up last. Your shoulders are back and down. Inhale your arms up, gaze past your fingertips to the sky. And then take it all to the left. So keep both hands up here. Keeping your head about centered in your arms, sandwiched between your biceps. And really feel a nice stretch in the right side body. And be sure that you're not losing the proper positioning from mountain pose while you're stretching out the right side body. So your tailbone is still twisting back and down behind you. Come back to center. And then take it to the right. Stretching out your left side. Maybe noticing this side is a little easier or a little more difficult than the last. Come back to center. Gazes up again at the hands and take it back. So take your hands back, a little mini back bend here while standing. Back to center. Forward fold with a flat back. Inhale up to a halfway lift. 90-degree bend at the hips. Shoulders are away from the ears. Gaze is down. Plant your hands and kick back to a plank. Holding here. Shoulders are directly over the wrists. If you need to, you can come on your knees. Otherwise, you're fighting your heels back behind you and twisting your tailbone, again, back and down towards the heels to activate the core here. We're not collapsing in at the shoulders either, so we're pushing out of the shoulder sockets. And our hips are not too high up or too low towards the ground. There's a straight line from shoulder to heels. So come down onto the mat. So lower down chaturanga and rest on your stomachs. You're going to come onto your forearms. So have your elbow directly underneath your shoulder, palms flat on the mat, coming to Sphinx pose. So your gaze is directly forward and your shoulders are away from the ear. A nice gentle bend for the mid-back here. Breathing in Sphinx. So now push up from Sphinx pose, lower down onto your knees and then swing your heels to one side. We're going to take some cat-cows. So you could take the cat-cows from a seated position, a modification, or you could take cat-cows on your hands and knees in tabletop position and just alternate the moves with the breath. So as you breathe in, come to cow pose, and as you breathe out, raise the middle back up into cat. From here, we're going to kick our feet back into a plank position again and flow through some sun salutations. So as you lower down chaturanga, you want to inhale up into a back bend of your choosing. So cobra, mini cobra, upward facing dog. And again, we're always pushing out of our shoulders are away from the ears. On an exhale, come over your toes into a downward facing dog, the first dog of today's practice. So feel free to pedal out your dog here, lowering one knee, stretching out the hamstring and the calf of the other leg. And then alternate sides. So we use downward facing dog as a resting pose. So we like to hold this pose for a long time, and I like to get my students to think of it in a restful way, despite how active it really is. You're always pushing through your hands, bringing your heels closer to the ground, to the mat behind you and underneath you, and you're raising your hips up to the sky. On an exhale, bend your knees and hop or step your feet up to your hands, and then inhale up to a halfway lift. Exhale down, forward fold. Staying here in a fold for another breath or two. Then inhale your arms up overhead with a flat back, gaze is up, shoulders are away from the ears here as well. On an exhale, bring your hands together, palms touch, and lower it down to your chest. Prayer at heart center. Inhale, arms up overhead, and then exhale down, forward facing fold. Inhale up to a flat back. And as you exhale, place your palms flat on the mat and step or hop back to a plank, lowering down, chaturanga as well. Then inhaling up to your back bend of choice and rolling over your toes to downward facing dog. We'll do another set, this time one movement per breath. So exhale your feet to your hands and inhale up to a flat back. Exhale down, forward fold. Inhale, arms come overhead. Exhale, prayer at heart center. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, swan dive, forward fold. Inhale to a halfway lift. Plant your hands, plank, chaturanga. Take your back bend. And exhale over the toes to a downward facing dog. On an inhale, right leg comes up, toes facing the ground, so you're not opening your hip here. And then exhale, kick it through to meet your hands. Spin your back heel down so it's parallel with the back edge of the mat, and windmill your arms up to a warrior two. And then flip your front palm right away and take it back to reverse warrior. So we're just coming right into a reverse warrior. Feeling a stretch in our right side bodies. Checking in with that front knee always, making sure it's at a 90-degree bend. Bring your arms back to warrior two, and then bring your fingers forward, bring your torso forward towards your fingers. Right elbow to knee, side angle pose. Left arm is up. Take extended side angle pose, so take that left arm overhead, feeling a stretch now in your left side body. So we stretch that right side, might as well stretch out that left side. Make sure your palm is facing your left side, your gaze is out to the left as well. And now bring both hands just right down to the mat and kick that front leg back to a downward facing dog. So right from where you were in side angle, we come right to dog and catch our breath here. Maybe take a nice collective inhale and then exhale, sigh it out. You can make it verbal. Sighing out, exhaling with your mouth open helps get rid of more oxygen quicker. It gets rid of more heat. So as you're holding the poses in this class, building heat, you can exhale. So inhale your left leg up and then exhale it through. Windmill right up to a warrior two, and then take it back right away, reverse warrior. Feeling a stretch now in your left side body is a different stretch. Check in with that front knee always. Come back to warrior two, then bring your front fingers forward. Side angle pose on the other side. Take extended side angle pose, reaching your hand overhead. Stretching out the right side now. Windmill both hands down to the mat and kick your front foot back, downward facing dog. Breathing here, reconnecting with your breath. Remembering, if you're a beginner, that yoga is all about the breath. So we're never holding our breath, not when we're transitioning poses, not when we're holding a difficult pose. Exhale your feet to your hands and come up halfway lift. Hands down onto the mat, forward fold. With an inhale, arms come overhead, and we exhale them down, prayer at heart center. Inhaling back up. Exhaling. We're gonna heel toe our feet together and come into chair pose. So toes are touching, most of the weight is in your heels, and your seat is coming really far back behind you. You're twisting your tailbone back and down. So you want like a nice curve in your back, and that actually hollows out your core a little bit. That's fine. Your arms are up and your shoulders are away from the ears. So sometimes with our arms up, we want to wear our shoulders as earrings, but we always want to remember to bring them back down unless a teacher or there's a specific pose that calls for it. Okay, come up out of that chair pose. You can heel toe your feet back to hips width distance apart. And then on an exhale, forward fold. We'll complete the sun salutation here. Inhaling up to a flat back. And exhaling down, plank chaturanga. Inhaling to an upward facing dog. Exhaling over the toes, downward facing dog. On an inhale, right leg goes up behind us. We exhale it through to our hands. Spin that back heel, come into a warrior two pose, and then straighten that front knee. And again, bring your torso forward, following your front fingers, right arm down to your shin or the mat or a block, and left arm up to the sky. So this is triangle pose. So you can have a micro bend in that front knee if you would like. That helps just protect the knee joint a little bit. It does activate some different muscles in that inner thigh. And the goal here is to pull down towards the ground, stretching out the hamstring in that front leg, while simultaneously opening up the chest and the shoulder, twisting up and open to the left. So left fingers are up and your gaze is past your fingers to the sky. So really look over that left shoulder. And activate the muscles in the left leg, so the left quadricep, and see how that actually helps spin you even more open in the chest and shoulder. So you should be able to look a little more to the left when you do that. And if not, that's fine. You do you. This is yoga. We keep it easy here. Come back into a warrior two position, so bending into that front knee. And then windmill the arms down to the mat, kicking it back to downward facing dog. Breathing. A few breaths here, always. Knowing that other poses are available to you, so if you would rather have a child's pose, take it. And then when ready, come back into that active downward facing dog. Exhale the feet to the hands and come up halfway lift. Forward fold. Inhale, arms up with a flat back, overhead. Palms connect, prayer at heart center. Inhale up. Exhale, fold. Inhaling to a halfway lift. Exhaling, plank and chaturanga down. Taking your back bend And coming to downward facing dog. On an inhale, the left leg rises this time. You guys know what's coming. Kick it through. We're going to spin up to warrior two. Then straighten that front leg. Bring your left arm down, stretching out that left hamstring. Right arm comes up overhead. Triangle pose on the other side. So deep breaths here. Hip is opening. Left hamstring is stretching. Right shoulder and chest opening, twisting. Really put your mind into the muscles here. Put your mind into what you're activating. And then once you've got it, put your mind into what can soften. So where do you need to constrict here? What do you need to work out? And what do you need to let go of in this triangle pose? And in life, just in general. Come back up, rebending into that front leg, warrior two, then windmill it down and kick it back to downward dog. Whew. Breathing in dog. Think back to your intention from the start of class. What is it you want to get out of today? Out of this class, out of this moment, out of right now. Always come back to that, to the right now. Exhale your feet to the hands, come up halfway lift. Exhale down, forward fold. Arms up overhead. Prayer at heart center. Inhale up. Exhale, fold down. Grab the big toes with the first two fingers, and you can use your thumb to loop underneath to secure the grip. And you want to push out, stretching the shoulders here, and you can have bent knees, but if you do, you want to be pushing your hips up, stretching the hamstrings. Put some weight into the front part of the foot as well, so you're not just putting a lot of weight into the heel here. Breathing. Gleaning between the toes, finally. Leaning on one foot more and then the other foot more, seeing what that does to the stretch, to the pose, to your mind. It's a nice healthy way to stretch out those hamstrings and the lower back. If you've got tight glutes as well, this could be loosening the glutes. This is a great pose for the back and the back part of the core. You're going to release the toes and then bring your feet a little wider than hips width distance apart. Hands come to prayer at heart center, and then drop your heels down. We're coming into a yogic squat. So chest is up, shoulders are away from the ears, chest is open as well, and you can use your triceps or your elbows to get a little more of an opening in the hips here. So find your edge in this yogic stretch, this yogic squat. You can lean more on one foot and then the other. You should feel a nice release in the lower back as well. If crow is in your practice, bring your hands flat down to the mat and bring your knees up onto your tricep and come into a crow pose. Elbows bend at a 90-degree angle. You can come back down. You want to bring your knees down wide to the edges of the mat and come into a child's pose. So your toes connect behind you and you lower your forehead down to the mat. This pose is the king of lower back releases. So as you breathe deeply in this pose, you're letting it all go. And naturally, without even really trying, your seat will come closer and closer to your heels, maybe one day touching. Maybe one day not touching, and that's fine too. You can also make this pose more active by pushing against the palms, activating the shoulders and the upper back, and that actually pushes your hips closer to your heels. So make this pose as active or as passive as you would like. The choice is yours. Maybe you're just breathing here and you're letting it all go and you're enjoying the tranquility that is child's pose. From here, lift your heel up and lift your hips up and keep your hip above the knee, and we're going to come into puppy pose. So with the hip still above the knee, you want to bring your arms down to the mat and then lower your forehead. Your forehead might not touch, that's fine. This is a really nice stretch for the back of the shoulders and the mid back and the upper back and lower back. We call it puppy pose. So the top half of your body is very similarly in like downward dog position. It's just that your hips are over your knees and you're not on the balls of your feet. Slowly come up out of the pose, coming onto hands and knees. And then lift off of your toe pads and come back to downward facing dog. On an inhale, your right leg comes up behind you. Bring your heel to your seat and then lift that right hip open to the side, but make sure that your shoulders stay in line. So you're not twisting out of any of your shoulders here. You're keeping your shoulders right where they were when you were in classic dog. Make circles with your heel. So really initiate that circle from the hip and then go the other way. So if you're going clockwise, go counterclockwise. And then bring that right foot back down to the mat. So come back to downward facing dog. On your next inhale, lift it up behind you. And then as you exhale, bring your right knee underneath your right wrist. All right, so you're bringing your knee to your nose, and then on an exhale, kick it back behind you, back up. And then on your next inhale, bring your right knee to your right elbow, so to the outside of your right elbow. And then on the next exhale, kick it back behind you. So you're breathing the whole time. So now on an inhale, bring your knee back up towards your nose, so you can round your upper back to get your nose closer to your knee. Exhale, kick it back behind you. Lower that leg back down to the mat. Downward dog. On your next inhale, your right leg raises up behind you. And now you want to rest your right knee underneath your right wrist. Your right foot is diagonally across the mat to your left side. We're setting up for full pigeon. This pose goes by a couple different names, but I know it as full pigeon. So your left leg is out straight behind you, and you're going to slowly lower forward and down onto your elbows or your forearms, or maybe you can lower your forehead all the way down to the mat. So remember to breathe in this pose. You're really stretching out that right IT band, which is a muscle that runs underneath your right glute, kind of near your glute and your hamstring. And you're just focusing on the breath here, really taking some nice deep inhales and deep exhales. And I'll let you settle in to this fantastic, sometimes painful and challenging, but oh so good pose. Slowly come up and out of the pose. Lifting up onto forearms and then hands. Untucking that right leg back behind you, and we're going to come back to downward facing dog and go ahead and open up that hip again. So heel comes to seat and then make circles. Going the other way with the circles. That right leg can come down, so we're in a downward dog. On an inhale, the left leg comes up. And then heel comes to seat, and we make circles with the left leg now. Opening up that left hip. You know what you're getting it ready for. Go the other way with the circles with your heel. And then bring that foot down. So resting in downward dog for a breath or two. We then want to inhale that left leg up behind us. And on an exhale, bring it to your nose, rounding your upper back. Inhale it back behind you. Bring it to the outside of your left elbow. And then back behind you. And now bring your left knee behind your left wrist, setting up for pigeon on the other side. So right leg extends back straight behind you, coming onto your shoulders, maybe onto your forearms, and even lower. Breathing here and pigeon on the other side. All right, you did it. Slowly come up out of that pose. Whoo. Onto your forearms and then palms. Kicking it back to a downward facing dog. We're gonna open up that hip now, so left leg goes up behind you, heel to seat, open the hip, make circles, get some movement going in that hip. If you're making circles, change directions. And now bring that foot back down. Bring your feet to your hands. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms all the way up overhead. Exhale, bring them to prayer at heart center. Inhale, arms up. Exhale down with a flat back, forward fold. Come up, halfway lift. Exhale to plank, lower down, chaturanga, slowly. We're going to rest on our stomachs here. And now from here, make your way onto your back. And just rest for a few breaths. Now take your right leg and you're going to raise it up to the sky. So we're doing a hamstring flexibility challenge. So your left leg, it stays flat on the mat, toes facing up to the sky, and your right leg goes up. If your leg isn't making a 90-degree angle at the hips, congratulations, you have tight hamstrings, which probably puts you in the majority. So don't worry if your hamstrings are tight. That's what we're here for. And you can lower that right leg down and you can test it on the other side. And then when ready, you could put that leg down and we're going to raise the right leg up again. This time our hands grab behind our leg, behind our knee, wherever you can get, and you want to keep your shoulders down on the mat and breathe and stretch that hamstring on the right leg. All right, we get to lower that right leg down, back to the mat. And you can even rest if you'd like by bringing your feet to like a bridge pose position, but then letting your knees collapse in. Otherwise, we're going to take another mini shavasana here before we stretch the hamstring on the other side. All right, now bring your left leg up to the sky. So you're doing that hamstring stretch on the other side. This is the safest way to stretch your hamstrings. So if you're on your feet and you're stretching your hamstrings, you could injure your knees, your back. You could injure anything, really. This is one of the safer ways to stretch out really tight hamstrings. All right, lower that left leg down and take another restful pose. Maybe bring your knees into the chest and give them a tight squeeze, rocking left and right. Feeling the massage on the back. You can lower your legs down to the mat. We're going to set up for a bridge or wheel if it's in your practice. So your heels should be close enough to your hands that the tops of your fingers can brush them. And then inhale your hips up. So come on into bridge or wheel. If you're in bridge, you're tucking your shoulders back behind you and coming up onto your shoulders. Fingers interlace into a fist underneath your seat. All right, lower down. You could bring your knees back into your chest, a nice counter stretch to bridge. Again, rock gently left and right, really massaging out the back. Now keep your knees up and bring your arms to a T. So make sure both of your shoulders are staying onto the mat, and then magnetize your knees together and roll your knees both to the right. Your gaze is to the left over your left fingers. If your knees don't quite reach the ground, you can lower your knees towards your heels. Bring your knees back to center. And then very slowly take them to your left side while gazing to your right. Bring your knees back to center. And now exhale them to the other side, and on the next inhale, bring them back to center, and on the next exhale, take them to the other side. So you want to keep this movement to the breath, really working that middle back. Okay, next time your knees are in the center, you can lower your legs down. Release all tension in the muscles here. Let your legs flop open. Hands are at your sides, palms facing up, neck is flat, shoulders are back behind you. Final resting pose, Shavasana. I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. Albert Einstein. You can bring some slight movements back to your physical body. Transitioning now to maybe slightly larger movements in your body, coming back. Stretch your arms overhead. Stretch from fingertips to toes. Grab your knees, bring them to your chest, squeeze and rock gently left to right. One last massage in today's class for that lower back. When ready, roll onto your right side in a fetal position, resting your cheek on your bicep. Pushing against your left hand and with your eyes closed, come to a comfortable seated position at the top of your mat. Spine is straight, neck is flat. Thank yourself for coming to yoga today and for being kind to your mind and your body. The light in me shines in the light in you. Namaste.